Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is now just 2 weeks away from its official release by Disney, Lucasfilm, J.J. Abrams, and George Lucas that is all set and ready to end the Skywalker saga and the sequel trilogy itself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Episode 9 is, of course, a lot of fans out there are very worried and or excited or apathetic towards this film. A lot of people have mixed feelings before going ahead and seeing this movie or deciding to not see this movie and waiting for it to release on other forms of media like DVD, Blu-ray, streaming, whatever have you. Now, The Rise of Skywalker, without a doubt, is a very important film to Disney, Lucasfilm, and of course to us, the Star Wars community, because it does determine the future of the Star Wars franchise. However, with all of the different changes and adjustments that Disney and Lucasfilm have gone through, things really aren't looking too bright within the second and the third acts of Episode 9 based on what Disney plans to do with The Rise of Skywalker and what they have already done with these massive adjustments to those actual acts of the movie. Now, specifically, what's really unfortunate about all of this is that it's explained that through many of the rewrites and reshoots of the film by Disney and Lucasfilm, it's explained that they adjusted many aspects of the second and third acts of the movie, where it's described that many of these changes came from Disney and Lucasfilm wanting to provide a different tone for the film than the previous cut of the movie and to completely change the structure of the film during those months of reshoots and rewriting elements of those particular acts. It's explained that one of the major changes by Disney and Lucasfilm was deleting many scenes from the film to replace them with other scenes that would focus more on the new characters and others. It said that all of the flash fight saber battles between Rey and Kylo Ren have been deleted from the film during those months to focus more on identity politics and to throw in their narrative into the film that is said to be associated with a handful of their new Star Wars characters. It's explained that one of the major scenes that were deleted from the film involved both Rey and Kylo Ren fighting on the world of Mustafar, with Darth Vader's castle seen in the background as the lava of Mustafar would spew in the background, where it's explained that, of course, that this scene of the flash fight between the two was deleted to focus more on scenes associated with new characters like Rose, Zori, Jannah, Poe, and Finn, and that those scenes thrown into the film are said to be full of identity politics, and that Disney is sending a message in the second act of the movie. It said that these changes were made mostly in early August when the massive reshoots just started. It said that they sacrificed all of the flash fight sequences to replace them with scenes that would allow Disney to send a message of real-world conflicts and actual struggles in our world as a message in a Star Wars film by using these new characters on screen, and to also focus more on diversity, and that originally there were far more lightsaber duels between Rey and Kylo Ren before this decision was made by Disney and Lucasfilm. They also wanted to focus more on comedy in the second act of the movie with the new characters to make the second act very lighthearted, where fans will laugh with many of the scenes being presented, and that the comedy in the film is very similar to the Marvel humor in the MCU. It said that these decisions were made by Kathleen Kennedy to focus more on diversity and identity politics and sending real-world conflicts that we are dealing with into a Star Wars film. Lastly, it's noted that one of the other scenes deleted from the movie was flow-walking scenes between Rey and Kylo Ren, which was going to allow Rey and Kylo to witness moments of the past 8 Star Wars films that were also deleted to focus on scenes more in tune with diversity and identity politics, where it said that there are many parts in the film where it is obvious that Disney is trying to send a direct message to the general audience by using The Rise of Skywalker as a platform or vessel to send it out to people in theaters. So let's go over a couple of parts about this and as to why this is a terrible, terrible decision by Disney and Lucasfilm. Now, one thing I have stated just yesterday is that one thing that I don't like about Disney, especially when it comes to the Star Wars films so far, especially now with this one, is when you focus more on diversity and identity politics past proper storytelling. That's where I have a problem. Now, that's not to say that I have an issue with people associated with different races involved in a Star Wars movie. I don't have a problem with that at all. But when you focus on it as a way to literally just force diversity and force identity politics into the actual movie, to sacrifice proper storytelling and to use Star Wars as a vessel to send an actual real-world message in a Star Wars film, that's where I have an issue. And that's one issue that I think needs to be addressed, and one issue that really needs to pretty much leave Hollywood at this point. We've seen many examples of Hollywood movies out there, such as Terminator Dark Fate, Ghostbusters 2016, tons of other movies out there that are also coming out in 2020 that's going to do the same exact thing, and it just needs to stop. So one thing I think a lot of you guys out there will agree is that the flash fights should have stayed in the movie without them being sacrificed by inserting scenes with these new characters that would promote the message of, specific real-world events and focus more so on identity politics and focus more on diversity. To me, focusing on that than proper storytelling just doesn't make sense, and it really honestly makes me want to go back to like a time in the 1990s or maybe even the early 2000s where proper storytelling was a thing. They didn't have to focus on diversity. They didn't have to focus on identity politics. If the characters needed to be a certain way, that's exactly how they were. Where with Disney, it seems they're just pushing their agenda and just kind of forcing it down people's throats just for the sake of doing it, in order to really get their message out by using the Star Wars brand, which is why I believe that this Disney trilogy, this entire, Star Wars sequel trilogy, doesn't really seem as much connected with the past two trilogies as we have seen, right? So The Rise of Skywalker, now just 2 weeks away, a lot of fans are very curious as to, whether or not it really is going to live up to expectations, and the fact that they have deleted so much material to focus more on diversity and identity politics, I think is just a very, very bad move that just spells a recipe for disaster. And it tells us, the fans, that Disney, they don't really care about proper storytelling. They really care more about, sending the message out there and really just kind of using this Star Wars as, as a brand, as a vessel, if you will, to get their message out to the general public, or to the general audience, I should say. And that's one thing, is that a lot of the reshoots and the rewrites that took place during those months, in case you guys did not know, was to restructure this movie to where it wasn't really made for hardcore Star Wars fans or even casual Star Wars fans, but to make it appeal to the general public. Basically, where anybody can go ahead and see this movie and know exactly what's going on from start to finish. That's exactly why this movie, I feel, from what we have seen in the TV spots so far, is a little just bland, in my own opinion. Some of the teasers and the trailers that we have gotten were promising, I will admit that. But lately, these TV spots, the marketing of The Rise of Skywalker, I will admit, has been a failure in comparison to The Force Awakens. It really has been a failure. It seems like that they really aren't including anything all that interesting. They're really refraining from showing anything related to Palpatine, which also relates to how Palpatine is going to only have 12 minutes of screen time in this movie, which also matches up with how they're not showing any footage of him, which is yet another telltale sign. If you're not showing footage of a particular character, it means that you can't sacrifice any form of footage in marketing, because it'll take away from the experience. That's the direct answer right there. So it really seems like that this movie, it could either be on the same level of The Last Jedi, worse, or maybe even just slightly better from the way things are looking right now. And hopefully, it really is going to be, past our expectations, and it will be a good Star Wars movie at the end of the day. But like I say, it seems like it's really going down a bad path right now. And I am still a Star Wars fan at heart, don't get that wrong, I really am. But I'm really hoping for the best still, but from the way things are actually turning out, things really don't seem to be, happening for the best right now. Sacrificing particular scenes, etc., etc. Now, there are still lightsaber duels in this movie. Don't get that, mixed up with how flash fights were deleted. Flash fights were going to be a next evolution, if you will, of lightsaber duels, where basically Rey and Kylo Ren would be fighting across space and time on different worlds like Tatooine, Naboo, Mustafar, Endor, you name it. So, with that being said, guys, I would really like to hear what you all have to say about this situation below in the comments and what you think about episode 9 so far. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.